Hello there, class. This is Mr. Thill, and today we're going to shift gears in our discussion about body systems and move from talking about the muscular system to the optic system, the parts of your body that allow you to see. So we're going to be looking at two diagrams here and giving you a bit of information about some of the key parts in your eye in both diagrams. Before I start, there's a lot more parts to your eye that I'm not going to talk about today. Those are things you'll learn more in high school or college. We're just going to go over some of the basics today about how your eye is able to, work and see. So the first view we're looking at, and remember our question here is what are the parts of the eye? The first view we're looking at is the external view. This is what you see when you look somebody in the eyes. So in the external view, these are the things that you're going to be able to see. Right here in the middle, you have your iris, you have your pupil, and then the whites of your eye are actually called the sclera. Now, each of these parts has a specific job that they do. The pupil, right here, even though it looks like a black spot when you look at your eyes, the pupil is actually kind of like a hole. It goes all the way to the back of your eye where it processes vision. So the pupil is an opening in the iris that lets light go into the eye. I'm going to write that right here by pupil. Kind of creepy to think about it like that your pupil is just kind of a hole in your eyeball. But there's a lot of protection there, as you'll see as we go on. So the pupil is an opening in the eye that allows light to go through. Now, surrounding your pupil, this is the part that, when people say you have blue eyes or brown eyes or green eyes, this is the part that kind of gives you that color. This is the iris. So the iris is kind of like, it's got a bunch of muscles inside of it, and its primary job is to open and close the pupil here. So if there's a lot of light, it's going to make the pupil small. It's going to shrink it or dilate it. If there's not very much light, like at nighttime, the iris is going to expand the muscles and allow the pupil to get bigger. So the iris is basically the part of your eye that either shrinks or gets bigger to allow less light or more light into your eye. So we're going to say here that the iris is the colored part of the eye. That can control the size of the pupil. So there's two muscles in your iris, two smooth muscles that can either shrink the pupil or make the pupil larger. And then the white part of your iris is called the sclera. We're not going to write a definition for that. The primary job of the sclera is that it gives your eyeball shape, and it gives places for muscles to attach and do jobs in the back of your eye. So the sclera is almost like a protective layer of your eye, but honestly, your eye socket and your eyelids are better at providing protection for the delicate things that are going on inside of your eye. So the sclera is just your whites of the eye. So I guess we'll just put that. It's the white part of your eye. Okay, so that's what your eye looks like from the outside, like if you're seeing a person and looking at their eyes. Next, we're going to look at the internal structures of the eye. And like I said, there's a whole bunch of internal organs in the eye. We're just going to focus on some of the major ones. Okay? So this is the internal view. Now some of the stuff you see here we already talked about on the external view, like the iris. The pupil's right here where this little opening is by the iris itself. But there's a couple more pieces in here that help your eye see. Sorry, there's a plane going by. All right, so this right here is the part that we can see when we're looking at somebody's eyes, like in real life. Your iris, and then right here is that hole. That's where your pupil's at. Now, covering this part is a little lens called the cornea. Your cornea is like a window that lets light go into the eye. So if we have light out here on the side, I'll do the light with a different color. Let's go with pink. So we have light out here. the light is going to pass through your cornea before going to the internal structures of your eye. So the cornea, we're going to say that the cornea is like a window that lets light pass into your eye. It also provides a level of protection for your eye since it is a cover of the eye itself. That's why you can't just take your finger and poke it into your pupil. Not that you want to do that, but the cornea protects that part of your eye from getting touched. So we already talked about the iris. Once again, the iris is in charge of either making the pupil bigger or smaller based on how much light your eye needs to enter to be able to see things. So there's the iris right there. That's the colored part of your eye. Now back here, behind the iris, we have our lens. So your lens is it's controlled by these muscles on the side that are called ciliary muscles, but your lens is in charge of directing light all the way to the back of your eye. So light will pass through your cornea, and then it will go through your lens here. And just like a camera lens, the lens can focus on things that are close, it can focus on things that are far away. It's in charge of focusing the light that comes into your eye into the retina. So for the lens, we're going to say that it is that's how I say this. It's a part of your eye that can change shape. To focus light. So that's why you're able to go from looking at something really close and then quickly looking at something far away. You have to refocus, and these muscles here help your lens to refocus. When you think lens, you think of like a really hard camera lens. It kind of has the same function of a camera lens, but it's more flexible. It can be shifted and changed pretty easily by your muscles there. So that is your lens. Okay, now once your light passes through the cornea and then passes through the lens behind your iris, it's going to continue through your eye, and it's going to go to the back of your eye, which is the retina. So it's going to end up right back here. Now your retina is basically the screen at the back of your eye. The retina is the part of your eye that processes the stuff you're seeing through the stuff that you're seeing and kind of turns it into images for your brain. So inside the retina, there's these little sensors called rods and cones, and those are in charge of taking all the information that your eye is getting and kind of turning them into color or black and white images. So we're going to say the retina is like a screen that begins to process the images that you see. So think of it almost like a movie screen, I guess, where they have these really fancy nerves inside of it that are taking everything that's coming through your eye and turning it into images inside of your brain. So yeah, once your retina has kind of processed the image, once your retina has begun processing the things that you're seeing, it goes to the optic nerve, and the optic nerve goes to your brain. And it's in your brain that it kind of makes sense of all the lights and movement that you're seeing and turns into an actual image itself. So the optic nerve down here at the base of your eye is attached to the retina, goes back into your brain. So basically an image will go through your cornea, through the lens behind your iris, to your retina, where it begins to kind of detect what's light, what's color, what's moving, what's not moving, and then it's going to go into your optic nerve and then back into your brain, the very back of your brain, where it makes sense of what you're seeing. It seems like it would take a while, but this kind of process is incredibly quick. It's incredibly quick for an image to get from here all the way to the back of your brain, because your human body is obviously an amazing thing. So there you go. And if you're wondering what's kind of in this empty space here, it's really just kind of like a jelly type liquid called vitreous humor. It's just basically a bunch of jelly-like stuff that floats around there that gives your eye shape. If you ever like notice like floaties on your eye, those floaties are usually going to be in your vitreous humor that are kind of those are parts of your humor that your vitreous humor that are kind of degrading a bit. So yeah, there's not empty space there. There's actually like some stuff there, like some jelly there. All right. So those are the basic parts of the eye on the outside and the inside.